Hi, my name is Sarah Depew, and I'm running for Texas House of Representatives in District 67 as a Democrat. And I'm here with...
I'm Shawn Jones. I'm the Vice Chair for the Libertarian Party of Collin County and former candidate for District 66.
Very cool. Well, we are coming together and we have written down a bunch of issues. They are in a bucket, and we are going to select one randomly and talk about it completely off the cuff. So we don't know what we're going to be talking about. We've not prepared statements. You're going to get just what comes up naturally.
Should be fun.
Should be.
All right. What do we have here? I know nothing about this topic.
I promise this is random.
We did go with the abbreviated weed, but we are talking about marijuana laws, law reform, and in what capacity the state should implement it.
You have no opinions about this, right?
You? No.
Yeah.
Not at all.
All right, well then, do you want to get started or shall I?
Ladies first?
All right, well, I'm going to be really simplistic about this. I think it should be criminalized and it should be monitored by TABC. I think we should tax it, and I think the money should go into bolstering public education.
Well, I do believe that we should definitely decriminalize it. I'm not necessarily for taxing it, as taxation is theft, but I would be willing to make a moderate compromise. It is the demonization of marijuana has become an absolute plague on our infrastructure in the judicial system. The courts are overrun with it. The prison, 55% of our prison population is nonviolent drug offenders. Again, my tax money is being stolen to cage other human beings for, a problem that realistically only impacted them. In some cases, the ones they loved, and other people, but it is, for the most part, it is, it's an individual choice when you damage yourself with those things.
I totally agree. I also think that keeping it illegal just empowers criminal elements. And to be quite frank, those are jobs. If people want to farm it, if they want to sell it, that should be their choice. If people want to buy it and use it responsibly, I do think there should be laws governing how people can use it, as far as, not driving under the influence, and, they can be added onto laws that we already have. It wouldn't be hard to write. But in a nutshell, I think that it would save a lot of money. I think that there's a financial and humanitarian burden that comes from keeping marijuana legal. It can't really be justified. It doesn't make any sense.
I would agree. I have this on here for medical marijuana. My father is 78 years old. He has Parkinson's disease and has had it for 25 years. And in a state like this, he can't get something to help him for his seizures. There's a lot of children out there that have a lot of neurological diseases right now. They can't get one of the most natural basic cures available to them because the state is restricting them from it and doing it under the false pretense that it's for their own well-being, when in actuality it's damaging.
So I'd mentioned earlier that I thought it should be monitored by TABC. Do you believe that it should be monitored, or where are you at on that?
Not particularly from a governmental level. I think that there's private venues to do that would monitor, as a consumer, I'm going to want to know how much THC is in my product that I'm buying, what strand it is. There's a lot of things that me as a semi-educated consumer am going to ask of my product and the people that are producing the product. So I think, kind of like you've seen the non-GMO verification projects that are out there, I think you would see a lot of that in the marijuana industry. Because, the fact is, if you want repeat customers, you want to put a good product out there. If you put a bad product out there, you're not going to stay in business very long. So I think that there is... I think that the people would really be able to regulate themselves in large regard.
So I don't know. I think there needs to be some kind of labeling requirements or something like that. So that way you don't have to have in your mind all this information about marijuana whenever you go to buy. You can just look at a label. You don't have to know everything about every different type. I think that's too high of a burden. I think their transparent labeling is not just for in this, in other areas as well. But I think that would be necessary to keep people safe, or to make good choices for themselves, or at least informed choices.
Well, I'm certainly for all, for transparent choices and having that information. Again, I'm just one that hasn't seen a lot of, how do I say this? I don't have a lot of faith in government regulatory industries to be truthful about what they're offering me or presenting me.
I hear that, I do. I think that it's still better to have some requirements that they have to live up to that you could sue if they lie to you, or there's some kind of recourse as opposed to just the luck of the draw.
Well, I think you are going to have packaging and you are going to have labeling, whether it was government mandated or not. There's very few people out there that are going to walk into any store, buy an unlabeled product, and consume it.
Right.
No doubt there is that person out there, but
right.
Your average consumer is not going to do that. I would go with it, and I am all for if somebody received damage because of the product and a misrepresentation of the product, they should absolutely not be protected, in some kind of a crony corporatism where we see a lot of corporations being protected for a lot of things.
Well, yeah, and that's kind of the source of my skepticism, I guess, about people being able to make their own choices without some kind of labeling requirements or monitoring. Because even with what labeling requirements we have now for cereals or whatever else you buy, you can look at the ingredients, but that's not always the most transparent as to what that means or what impact that has on you. You have to be an especially informed consumer to look at the back of just any label at the grocery store and know what you're getting. That takes an extra level of diligence, I think.
I would agree, and I tend to be more one of those people these days, which has been a relatively new thing, I would say, in the last 8 years. As my son has gotten older, I've gotten more involved with paying attention to what I'm putting in his body. But going on referring back to the regulatory, I would look to something like the FDA, where the man who's running the FDA is a former Monsanto lobbyist.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that I can put much stock in, the guy who used to work for one of the companies that I despise the most. I'm not sure that I can trust him to have my well-being in mind when he's telling me which products are safe and which aren't.
Yeah.
Which gets us into a whole different kind of reform that I think we both can agree needs to happen.
Yeah.
With cronyism all the way across.
Yeah, we don't want wolves guarding the hen house, so to speak.
And and I would say even going along it away from the medical and recreational aspect, I think that industrial hemp could be a huge cash cow for the state of Texas. The arid West Texas climate is ripe to be able to grow this, and I think we are seeing a renaissance in farming where you're seeing a lot of people our age and a little bit younger who are starting to have a call to get out of the city and to have a couple of acres themselves and to not be part of the rat race. And I think that industrial hemp would be an excellent way. It's a very low maintenance plant to grow. It's very easy to harvest, and at the end of the day, not only are you making proteins and foods out of it, you're making textiles, you're making rope, you're making paper, you're making toilet paper, and you're also making bioplastics, which we can use to make water bottles and run cars off the oil that produces it.
No. I guess I've got two trains of thought here, and since you're talking about hemp, I'm going to go ahead and go there. I don't really know what the water requirements are for hemp. When you talk about doing these farms in West Texas, would that burden their water infrastructure or anything like that, or?
Not particularly. I mean, hemp it takes very little water.
Really?
It is an extremely resilient. It is one of the few plants you can pretty much see it anywhere on the globe. In almost any conditions, it can be grown.
That's really cool.
So, and I think there's enough we could tap into the water tables in West Texas where really you've got no population to speak of, and then we could put irrigation pivots out there if need be. But it is not a very taxing plant, and it's really a seed it, come back in 6 to 9 months, and it's good. And as well, whenever you talk about the environmental impacts of being able to, I believe they say it takes about 10 years for a tree to mature to the point where it can be turned into paper.
Mm-hmm.
It takes less than 9 months for hemp to get that to that stage. So you are continuing to regenerate something that is cleaning our air, producing more paper, producing oil, and it eliminates a lot of things that we're relying on outside sources for.
That's pretty convincing.
So.
But kind of getting back to Colorado, I read recently that teens in Colorado have seen the number of them going into hospital ERs for THC overdoses doubled. Do you think there should be restrictions placed on age? I do. I think that you shouldn't be able to, without medical exceptions or whatever, but just recreational marijuana use, I don't think that minors should be able to recreationally smoke pot.
I'm not for my kid getting high. No.
Mm-hmm.
I would be interested to see, and I have no doubt that teenagers, as with anything, run to extremes.
Uh-huh.
And I'm not savvy enough with some of what's out in Colorado. I haven't had the chance to partake, so I'm not sure if I've only heard legend and lore of some of the things.
Yeah.
I would be curious to know if we cross-reference some of the other things going on with that same demographic of people. Are we having more or less suicidal thoughts? Are we having more or less
there was a
hardcore
comorbidity with depression.
drug use? Is there less alcohol use? I think you can pluck out any statistic, and yes, and I mean, and it is very real that people have overdone it as teenagers. But even then, in Colorado, you can't be 16 and walk in and buy it. So these kids are still getting it illegally.
That's true.
The reality is that whenever you're, again, driven into the black market, 16-year-old kid goes in and all he wants to buy is a bag of weed. Hey, man, got something else for you. If you like that, you should really try this.
Yeah, so...
And it is. It's the very real, when you, again, driving into the black market, kids going after one thing end up with another. And then you have a completely different, I was,
That's so true.
I lost a lot of friends to the heroin epidemic in Plano in the, mid-90s. That was very much a part of the people I grew up with, and it impacted all people, of all monetary backgrounds and all family structures and all race, creeds, colors, and religions. Heroin takes no prisoners, and it really doesn't care what you do, what you look like, or what you think about. Mm-hmm. It does what it does. And, not that it would have stopped some kids are going to do it. That is the reality of it. But I think we can bring things out into the light and educate them and give them give them good information instead of fear and propaganda.
Absolutely. And, it's been a long time since I've looked at, studies comparing, our hard drug use amongst teens with those, in other countries where weed is more legally accessible, even if it's not intended for youth, they still consume it, although at lower rates than American youth, interestingly. But they did find, and again, it's been 10 years since I've looked at these studies, that hard drug use was significantly lower, where marijuana was legal, safely accessible. But to kind of get on to your point about whenever it's brought into the black market and these teens are going for it anyways, and, other things come with that, I can say when I was a teenager and smoked pot, you never knew the quality of what you were getting. Because I wasn't buying anything. I was just using whatever my friends had at the time. And, there was one time when, I got to tell you, it burned so hard. I couldn't breathe for the rest of the night. It hurt. And I know something was in there that shouldn't be. I know it. I don't know what it was. I've got no recourse if I was severely injured. Mm-hmm. There's really no one I can go to about that. You know what I'm saying? Whereas, at least if there's some kind of open market for it, where it's out in the open, there's recourse if someone is injured by it. So, well, I think that we did a pretty good job talking about this. Do you want to summarize your position really briefly? Or not really?
Legalizing in all forms. It is the easier, softer way. It will not only save us money, it will save us lives, and the environmental impacts are very real as well. So let's hope we can save the environment with it too.
Yeah, decriminalize, regulate, have TABC monitor it, and restrict its use by age unless there's a medical reason otherwise. And yes, I think we actually have quite a bit of overlap there, other than the regulation part.
Agreed.
All right, great. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
All right, bye.
Peace.